Good evening, everybody. Welcome, Achievement Unlocked. You made it to the last presentation of the day. So let's get going. So excuse me, who am I? And why am I giving this presentation? Well, welcome. My name is Nick, and I'm a data scientist. So that means, according to the Harvard Business Review and Forbes magazine, I have the sexiest job of the world. So what does a data scientist do? Well, it's my job to boil the ocean. I collect the digital breadcrumbs that you leave behind as you navigate the internet forest, and I help try to make better services. So, all good presentations have an agenda, and here's today's agenda. I'm going to give you a quick history lesson. Then I'll do a quick sales pitch, but then while you're here, it's a deep dive into some historical data. So, history lesson, ignore the fonts there. Evolution of computer games revenue sources. Once upon a time, people used to go into things called shops. They go in there and they buy a boxed software product. You know, your copy of Rainbow Six, Age of Empires. You go into a store, you give them the $50 or how much it costs, and then you go home. So you paid, and you take the game home. Then you play the game. Maybe it was fun, and you enjoy the good value for money. Maybe you suffered sort of buyer's regret. You know, it wasn't sort of very much fun, but you've paid the money in advance. Then the internet came along. And we moved into browser-based games. I worked at Microsoft for a while, MSN Gaming Zone. We had these Flash-based games where people would, the games were the eyeballs that would bring you in. And you monetize them by putting adverts on the side. You were all seeing the banner adverts on there. When I was at Microsoft, it was kind of about 1 cent, about 1 penny per user per hour. That's how much you could sort of get. The games would come in, you play these Flash-based games, and then we'd monetize them from advertising. Then the world moved into this sort of place called the deluxe download space. They said, hey, if you play these games, you know, how about we sell you full screen versions of those, enhanced graphics, enhanced sort of music, sort of sound, all the rest of stuff. And we can charge you money for those. How they used to get sold is kind of a Alibaba sort of crippleware. You'd download the game, it would work for an hour, and then it would fuse, and you have to get your credit card out and unlock it. And they start off at $19.99 and then $15.99, and they'll just price race to the bottom. People like sort of Big Fish, you know, they were producing all these sort of hidden object games, that kind of stuff. What happened next? Then we moved to this thing called this tablet, and these mobile products came along. Now you played the games, and when you got your first iPhone, you probably realized there was these $1.99, 99 cents sort of deluxe download games where you pay the 99 cents for the game. But where we are today, now we're in this freemium model. If you go to the App Store, pretty much every game is free. But you pay for it in little microtransactions. Or microtransactions, I like to say, Mom, I need your credit card number. So, it's been a free-to-pay world for developers for quite a while. This is kind of an old slide. Go back to 2013, but you can see how the gaming industry is growing. The bottom part of the section here, if I can highlight it, it shows, where's the like? You can see how, as the games markets doubled between 2012 and 2013, the same amount of money gets spent on fixed price. So, yeah, there is a small market out there. There are some people who are still charging a small amount of money for premium games, but the vast majority of money comes from people who are doing in-app purchases. There it is. So what that means is you kind of need an ongoing relationship with your customers. You're getting them to play your game. They're downloading your game. They're playing your game. They're having fun on the game. And it's quite a while before the pay gate comes along. So you have to have a pretty good gaming experience. It's not as if you can sell them the product to start off with. You kind of have to earn their trust in order to build sort of to pay money on the game. So make people want to pay, not have to pay. Players become payers. It's not the other way around, and that's the change from when you're selling a retail or product up front towards sort of coming the other way around. And if there's one slide that sort of tells you what all this is about, it's the economic beauty of microtransactions. And I'll go a little bit slower on this slide because this is kind of really sort of cool. Economics 101, you've got a price volume curve, and you have a little sort of graph like this. The lower the price, the more you're going to sell. Once upon a time, people used to sell games at $19.95, and there's a certain amount of sales you get, and it's the area of this box which tells you the potential profit you're going to get. It's the amount you sell. Then some Harvard MBA guy comes along and says, you know what? If we sell the game at a low price, we're going to sell more. And if you're half the price and you sell more than twice the quantity of that, you're going to make more money. And sure enough, the area of this box here is bigger, so you're going to make more money. But when you sell a game or a product or anything at a fixed price, you cap out on two really important parts of the curve. There is the long tail. These are people who aren't going to spend $10 on your game, but maybe you spend 25 cents, 50 cents, 75 cents. And there could be hundreds of millions of people going that way. So hundreds of millions of people at 25, 50 cents adds up to a lot of money. But there is also what I call the tall tail. These are sort of people who would spend more than the $9.95 in the game that's sort of gone through. So it's a rhetorical question, and we're going to get the answer before the end, but which do you think's bigger, the long tail or the tall tail? Think about it for a second. Any ideas? It was rhetorical, you don't have to answer. We'll find out the answer before the end of the presentation. So there are three basic kinds of microtransactions that people spend money on when they're playing their games. And I've made these named myself. I've called them bling, accelerators, and power-ups. Bling. These are items in the game that don't adjust the mechanics of the game at all, but they adjust how things will look. People will spend $5 on a game to have a red hat, or a blue sword, or yellow contact lenses. And they don't change the game, balance the game in any way. And you say, Nick, that's crazy. Why would anyone spend that money? And it's like sort of fashion. A pair of jeans is $10. A pair of designer jeans is $200. They're not 20 times more utilitarian. If you're on a desert island, let's say creative jeans washes up, you don't care what kind of jeans they are. So why do people spend all that money, extra money on a pair of jeans? Well, it kind of makes them feel good. It makes them look good. They walk down the street. They get respect from sort of people, and people know that they spent their money. They feel good. I'm not judging it. It's just it's a fashion. If we're all blind, nobody would sort of care what sort of jeans look like. And it's the same thing in a game. In some games, 20% of the revenue will get generated from people who just have fashion items that doesn't change the balance of the game in any way at all, but people just want to customize how they look in the game. So that's bling. Then we have the accelerators. This is kind of how much you value your time. Kill 10 orcs, get to the next level. This is kind of a bit of a grind. My son, he finishes his homework, he goes home, and he kills these 10 orcs. I want to keep pace with my son, but I have a job to do, so I can't sort of chase down the orcs, find them all, grind them, get the chainsaw out, whatever you do with orcs. Is it shotguns with orcs? I'm not sure. Whatever you do to kill all the orcs as they go through. So I'm prepared to pay 1 gold coin so that I don't have to sort of kill them all because I'm impatient or I value my own time. Put the windmill down. The windmill will be ready in 20 minutes. But I want it ready now, so I'll pay some money and it'll get ready. So you can value your own time. It doesn't adjust the balance of the game, it's just that it's an accelerator. And finally, we have power-ups. These are ways to monetize revenge. You know, somebody's been into your village and raped and pillaged it. It's like, you know, I'm going to get my revenge, so I want to get an attack bonus for the next 12 hours. Give me this attack bonus. These you have to very carefully control, because if rich people could buy their way to the top, it doesn't become so fun anymore. So skill you can buy should be no greater than one skilled in the art should be able to sort of get. So welcome back to sort of games again. User acquisition costs are probably your single biggest expense. CPI is cost per install. Fixu, various other sort of companies track. How much does it cost you to sort of get an install of your game? It's pretty expensive. Why? There are 740 new games released every day, or they were in 2016. That's an awful lot of games. You know, this is you when you launch your indie game. So if you build it, they all come. If you have the greatest game in the world and nobody knows about it, it's just the greatest game in the world that nobody knows about. Content is king, but distribution is God. You really have to sort of get your product out there, which involves sort of marketing and getting things sort of out there. Visibility auction, quiz up. We're kind of naive. We thought if we made a really good product, it would just sell, but that's not the case. It's a brutal world out there. You really have to sort of advertise and spend money to sort of get people aware of your product. So I'm going to do a quick Facebook sales pitch. It's kind of a big place. You can see we've been growing and growing. Last figures are about 1.86 billion people use the Facebook product every month. Over 800 million people play at least one Facebook-connected game every month. That's a huge audience. So I said it's hard to sort of get awareness of your product. Facebook's a pretty good place to sort of get your message out to all those people. Why is it so much fun? Well, it's so much better to shoot somebody you know than somebody you don't know. Knocking Uncle Bob off the top of the high score table is much better than knocking some kid in Nebraska who just posts max int scores just because he sort of can. So all games are very sort of social things. We like to measure things, and that's part of my work as a data scientist, how much water is in the bath. The industry loves to talk about daily active users, and daily active users are the measure of the people who use your game every day. And these things could go up, and they can go down. But unless you're tracking the right things, you're measuring the wrong things that sort of happen. So why could people leave your game? Well, you know, they drain out the bottom. And then you get new users that come back into the top. Imagine 2 games. Game A, and it has 1 million people using the game today, and 1 million people using the game tomorrow. Million. Game B has 1 million people today, and 1 million people tomorrow. This game sucks rocks through a straw. And everybody tries to get, this is garbage, it's just a horrible game. So they're losing people at the bottom. But their user acquisition team, their marketing team, the people are bringing in fresh eyeballs. They're awesome. They're bringing in fresh meat every day, great new people. So you're churning through all those sort of people. The problem you're trying to solve, to make your game to better, is like fix the damn game because it's a garbage game. Over here, this game might be awesome. It's the world's sort of coolest game, but nobody knows about it because advertising and the marketing teams are very good. And so the problems you're trying to solve are very different sort of problems. So understanding sort of sources and sinks about how people are getting into your games is kind of really important. I've got some other presentations. I'm not going to talk about that today, but the quote from Nielsen, the price of light is less than the cost of darkness. So you need to really understand where your customers are coming from and where they're sort of churning out of the game. Okay, now to the deep dive. One of the first projects I did when I joined Facebook is a lifetime analysis of spending on Facebook games. And living in Seattle, I had this sort of rain analogy. So I'll sort of tell you about what I did. I looked for whales. Oh, that went by. It was started off as a whale hunting, but then we found out that there's some other things sort of going by. What's the definition of a whale? Everyone talks about sort of whales in the industry, in terms of, is it somebody who has a high-value transaction, somebody who has a frequency of spend, somebody with lifetime spend? And what defines a successful game? Most daily active users, highest monthly active users, ARPU, average revenue per user, average revenue per paid user, time and revenue, that kind of stuff. And what I chose to look at is lifetime value of spend, because this is something that a good game has a good lifetime revenue, and a whale is somebody who spends a lot of the lifetime. But we come back to that, the long tail or the tall tail thing. Is a high volume of small transactions better than a small number of large transactions? We don't know. We have to examine some data. But it's not all about the whale. The analogy here, Bill Gates walking into McDonald's, he's going to spend $2.99 a Happy Meal. That's all he can spend. That's all the only thing that sort of goes on. Were he to go into a fancy French restaurant, he may be able to spend $50,000 or $60,000 on a bottle of wine if he really wants to do that. But if there wasn't something in the store that sort of goes through. So just because, there's people who have the ability to spend doesn't mean to say they are going to spend. It's the game itself. And so you need to understand, great games that need to encourage, and different games monetize at different rates, as we'll see along. So this is supposed to be rain, and this is my lifetime sort of spending. So what I did is I created these definitions. Misters, sprinklers, drizzlers, showers, rainers, monsooners, and super monsooners. And these are people who play the game. And over time, they spend money in the game and they deposit them. And what I talk about is TPV, total payment volume. It's the amount of money they spent of lifetime on an individual game. And the buckets are less than $2, $2 to $5, $5 to $10, $10 to $50, $50 to $100, $100 to $500, $500,000. And these are super monsooners. These are people who spend more than $5,000 on that game of choice. So what I did, I looked at every transaction on every game by every user on Facebook. This is Canvas, that's our web-based games, from 2010 to 2016. So I boiled the ocean looking for all those games. And I calculated the TPV, which is the total payment volume, that's a lifetime spend, and then I anonymously aggregated all that stuff together and put it into one sort of master table. And then I bucketed people into lifetime categories by game and genre. It's sensitive data, so I've Greeked it out and blurred it, so you can't sort of see what's going on too much. But you can see here are the various different sort of games in here, and here are the bars which tell you what percentage of the revenue for that game comes from the people who spend a little bit of money, a lot of money, and these are other categories for the volume of spend and how often they spend. So you can sort of see here, this game has a lot of people, super monsoons on here. This game over here has sort of people spending small amounts of money, and that's how the revenue for the game comes from. So we'll go back to answer that question, the long tail or the tall tail. Here are 4 of the top 100 games. Again, I've had to take the names off to protect the innocent, but here are the bars represent the number of people who spend up to $2 here. These are the people who spend over $5,000 in the game. And you can see there's various different profiles of the games. But when you multiply by the amount of money they spend, you find out where the revenue comes over here, because even though there's a lot of people over here, a lot of people spending a little bit of money, just a small number of people spending a large amount of money puts the size of the seesaw over this head. And it's all to do with this thing called leverage. Out of the top 100 all-time revenue grossing games on Facebook, 90% of the revenue comes from players who've spent more than $100 individually on any game. 98.9% of all revenue on all games ever on sort of Facebook comes from people who've individually spent more than $10 on that game themselves. So if you do the subtraction, 1.1% comes from the people who spent less than $10 a game. So going back to our sort of curve here, 98%, 99% of all revenue in games comes from the tall tail. Which means if you're selling a game at a fixed price at $10, $10 is all you're ever going to get out of people, and just about all the revenue comes from here. It's pretty consistent. That was the top 100 games. At the top 1,000 games, it's 98.6% comes above $10. For every game ever, 98.4%. So it's not a power curve that sort of changes on small indie games. All games that are successful and sort of making money, they all make money from the people who spent more than $10 a lifetime on their games. Freemium's the way to go. So, some advice. Don't leave green on the screen. This is, again, is a top 100 game on Facebook. And you can sort of see they've got nothing in their stores that you can purchase for less than $2. So imagine going to the shopping mall with your kids and they've got their $2 allowance, and if there's nothing in the store, in the whole shopping mall they can buy for less than $2, you missed out on those hundreds of millions of people with those $2 and the kids. So again, make sure you have something in the store that the kids, even if it's just a little propeller head sort of thing that they can sort of buy, because again, as they mature, as they get more pocket money, that's how they're going to get through to get under the payment path into the game. Similarly, don't leave green on the screen over here. Here's another sort of top-selling game. This game has nothing for the Bill Gates of this world. There are no fancy bottles of French wine that you can buy in this theme. If you've got a game out there, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but okay, you all go to Vegas one time in your life. When you go to Vegas, you can go past that high roller room where the little velvet stanchions that go through. There are people there pushing $1 million chips around, playing blackjack, because they can. That's how they get their fun. Those people have Facebook accounts because the vast majority of the world has Facebook account. 1 in 3 of them plays games. So if they can push $1 million chip around just to playing a game of cards, spending $5,000 over the lifetime on a farming game or a saga-like game is no big deal for them. And if you've got nothing in your store to be able to sell them, you're going to miss out on all those people. And because of the leverage, again, one person spending $5,000 is worth an awful lot more than tens of thousands of people spending, a few pennies. Looking at sort of Facebook, there's only 3 games in the all-time top 300 grossing games that didn't have any player that spent more than $5,000. So all the games on Facebook that are successful in the top 300 games, there's only 3 of them didn't have a hyper whale sort of spending more than $5,000 on life. Shame on them. There was 15 games that had no money from people who spent less than $2. So they failed on their leaving green on the screen. They had nothing in their store that they could sort of sell to sort of to pocket money stuff. There's only 1 game in the top 1,000 grossing games that didn't have a single player that didn't spend more than $1,000 on their game. So again, it's all in the top tail. And there are 12 games that didn't have anybody who spent in the top. There's only 12 games in the top 5,000 games that didn't have anybody who spent between $100 and $500 lifetime individually on that game. TBV, how does a game? This is a game, again, it's anonymized. I can't tell you what the game is, but it's a game that's been launched for many, many years. You can see it had a very long beta period here, and then they launched the game. This is the total payment volume. Over time, it's gradually been getting less. But what I can sort of show here, these are the effective sales. You can see they did a sale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When they did a sale, they get 9 times the normal sort of payment volume in the game, just in that particular sort of game. And again, they do regular sales. And looks like every 4 months they'll do a sale, and they make lots of spikes in the revenue. Here's another game. Over a lifetime, it's going down, but it's not all negative. Here's a game. They're doing great things. They're marketing their game, and over time, their total payment volume every day, they're making more and more money. So over time, even over many, many years, the game is still continuing to grow. How's it look from players? Here's a hyper spender. This is a whale. He's an anonymous guy, or she's an anonymous guy. I don't know who it is. But this is somebody who spent a considerable amount of money on a game over a long period of time. Do the cumulative spend, you can sort of see. We've got this oh, I'm sorry about that. Beep, beep. Over time, it's sort of growing, sort of gradual, all the way up to sort of spending a large amount of money. Different players have different sort of curves. What happened here? This person played, they spent a lot of money, and all of a sudden, they've gone. They spent lots and lots of money. You kind of really want to know what's happened to that player. Maybe you're going to encourage them to come back because they're one of your best spenders. Like this somebody is a new player. Let's track what they do. They're spending a lot of money very quickly, as opposed to how do you determine whether they're going to turn into somebody like this very, very quickly? You want this person back. Because It is cheaper to bring someone back from the dead than to find somebody new. And a kind of example of this, Nordeus, they're a top 11 football manager, big game on Facebook. They spent $3,500 on this re-engagement campaign. Said, hey, we love you, we miss you, sort of come back. Here's some free coins, sort of come back. Pretty much overnight, they gained an additional $121,000 in revenue. People coming back. Oh, here, I like the free coins you've got. Oh, yeah, I remember how much I love the game. I'll sort of come back and sort of spend some more money. I looked at spending frequency. Different games monetize in different ways. There are these candy-like games. They tend to have low transaction volume, high volume of transactions, and robot removers. If anybody's played one of those sort of candy-like games, you play the game, you play the game, you play the game, you play the game, you get stuck. What happens when you get stuck? You reach into your pocket, you get your quarter out, you put it into the machine, you get the magic power-up gem. The magic power-up gem allows you to get past that level, and then you're on to the next level again. It's a sunk cost. You never visit it again. It's sort of gone by. You've spent the money. You're quite happy the transactions allowed you to get to where it's going to be. So you tend to find these games have lots and lots of a high frequency. At the time you need the money, you spend the money, and then you sort of forget about it. Which is different from these kind of world-building, clanny-like sort of games where what happens here is you put down your $25, and then you burn through that $25 or $50 or how much it happens to be, and then you decide at that particular point when you get it up the ante and buy another sort of set of $25. So you deposit cash, you burn down over time. It's a smaller volume of transactions. And this is kind of interesting because what you've done is you've converted real money into a digital tangible asset. In your sort of farming game where you got your windmill, you put your $5 down, you bought your windmill. It was there yesterday, it's here today. I'm less likely to churn out of a game when I've spent some real cash to buy some sort of tangible asset in the game. It's not a sunk cost. It's something that sort of turned it into a different kind of asset. So I look at there are some examples. Again, these have been anonymized, but these are all in the top 200 games on sort of Facebook lifetime. Here's a game. The average lifetime user spent $68 on the game. And you can see the transaction is about $2 a time. So this is probably sort of kind of one of those sort of candy-like games. And here's another game. You can see that they've spent $80 lifetime, and the average transaction value is $1 a time. So these guys have gone back to the well almost 80 times. I've powered up, I got the power gem, I got the power gem. So these probably have better game design, more sticky games, but the items in their store are very cheap. These guys are still doing a fairly good job in about sort of 30 times. Here's kind of a medium sort of product. Lifetime spent a little bit less, but they're getting a higher transaction. But you go back to your wallet 5 times, and then after a while, you're not going to play that game again. Here, look at this one. They're averaging $5. So it's still a pretty cheap transaction, but on average, people spend $500 over the lifetime of the game, which is pretty high. Compared to some of the larger sort of games here, look at this. The people are putting down $20, $25 a time, and over the lifetime they're spending hundreds of dollars. I like the game. And again, don't judge these people. These are people spending lots of money. They're having hundreds of hours of entertainment. They're putting more money down. They're putting more money down. It's sort of just like going to the movies or going out to the pub and buying some beer. It's what they get for entertainment. A little bit about average. Look, we hit the bullseye. And kind of what I wanted to talk about this is kind of understanding what average means. Let's say you have 38 people in your game spending $10 each, and then you have one whale who comes into your game and spends $5,000. That means the average spend is now $138. So if you build your game for people on average spending $138, you're kind of getting it wrong. I don't know what the net worth of everybody in this room, average net worth of everyone in this room is. But if Bill Gates walked into here today, we're all multi-billionaires or multi-millionaires, or we're all our net worth is increased by hundreds of millions of dollars when he walks in here. So if you treat us all like we're all millionaires, you're kind of going to sell us the wrong things. So you need to understand the profile of the people who are playing a game, not just working on these average revenue per user and average paying user, which everyone else listening. Oh, this is just the average. Don't work on averages. I did some analysis on serial monogamy instead of playing games. What I looked at sort of how many different games do you play a week, and I have access to this data from sort of people that goes through. So here's a cross correlation. Again, it's anonymized to protect the games. But here are all the games here and all the games across the top. And down the leading diagonal, it's 1.0 because everybody who plays the game plays that game. But it tells you the percentage of people who play this game also play this game. And there's obvious correlations. People who play this kind of word game also like to play this word game. But as well as doing that, you can come up with, find out how loyal people are. These are on average of the top 100 games on Facebook. And it's a little bit harder to explain, so I'll go a little bit sort of slower. But out of the people who play the top 100 games, on average, 46% of people only play that one game. 23% of that people play 2 games on average, 3 games on average, 4. So this is across all of the games on average. And then what you can do is you can look at all the games individually. We've got here, what we can find here, this game here is incredible. What I'm saying is the person that plays this game, and again, it's Greeked out, you can't sort of see who it happens to be, 82% of this game, that's the game they play a week, and that's the only game they play a week. And maybe they'll play 2 games, but usually, if they've got some spare time, that's the only game they'll play. I can tell you now, without looking, that's kind of a building, farming sort of kind of game. You invest a lot of time, you curate things, you get things sorted out. Kind of over here, these people have no loyalty at all. They'll play 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6 different kinds of games. I can tell you now, these are casino games players. What happens is they'll go to a slot machine, they'll pull the handle, ching, 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 and they'll pull the handle, it runs out of coins. What they do, they go to the next slot machine, they pull the handle until they run out of coins, and they go to the next one, they'll pull the handle until they run out of coins, and then when they get busy, they'll go back to the beginning again when the energy is regenerated. So these people have less loyalty. What does that mean? If you're in the casino games business, I strongly recommend you skin your games multiple times. It's better to have 4 skinned slot machines in the game so you get 4 lots of the pie rather than just having one particular slot game. So I said my time was coming up. I got the 5-minute warning. So summary. Hundreds of millions of Facebook users play games every single month. Games are a very sort of social thing. It's a brutal world out there for developers. It really is. There are hundreds of thousands of games launched a year. Visibility is hard, and customer acquisition costs are very high. Cost per install is very expensive. Freemium is the business model of choice. It's kind of where all the money sort of comes from. Players become payers, not the other way around. So your game has to be compelling enough that people want to pay, not what they have to pay. If you put that pay gate saying, oh, you have to pay money to carry on playing the game, you fool me once, you may get some people to pay. But at the end of the day, people get to the end of the week, and when finally the pay gate comes along, it's like, I had a really good time. I amortize the amount of money you're asking me to spend, how much money I've sort of gone through. I want to pay you money because I want that additional content. I want more experience that sort of goes through. Tall tail generates significantly more content than long tail. But without the long tail, there's no reason for the tall tail. And that goes back to the fashion example with a set of jeans. If there wasn't that cannon fodder audience of sort of people to see you strutting down the street in those jeans, there'd be no reason to sell you those jeans. Even though 95% of the people who play your freemium game aren't going to spend any money, they're an essential part of your ecosystem because if they weren't there, the people wouldn't spend the money in order to be able to sort of be proud or strut their stuff in front of all those sort of people. So the tall tail, even though they're not spending any money, they're an important part of your ecosystem. So if you just design a game just for whales, no whales are going to show up because they like to show off. Different games monetize in different ways. Understanding users. Are you one of those sort of games that sort of fast action sort of churn through, or are you building things? Use complex metrics. You need to understand distributions. Work on averages is just a sort of a horrible way, and you're going to get sort of trouble. Nobody designs things for averages. You design certain features for your high-spending people, and you need features for the low-spending people as well. Builders, people who build those building games, tend to be more monogamous. And don't leave green on the screen. You need to make sure you offer things across your portfolio of products for people at all levels. And finally, it's cheaper to bring someone back from the dead than find somebody new. So if you've had a loyal user and they spent some money and they've gone away, invite them back. Yeah, come back. We love you. And with that, I have reached the end. We finished into the time. I'm happy to take questions, but I know there's beer and other stuff next door. If you want to take questions, I'll do it now. But if not, you can catch me with a beer next door. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for staying to the end.